Eneru return? That's a question that's been permeating throughout the fandom for, well, ever since the end of Skypiea. Because let's be honest, Skypiea, despite the fact that Mantra has become observation haki and that has taken on a role of its own, even going so far as to being Katakuri's main claim to fame with his future sight, and the dials being a regular implementation in the world of One Piece for various tools and gadgets, Skypiea continues to be the one saga that just has not felt like it's borne any real fruit. Hell, even when Nami went to Witheria, another sky island, it still didn't make Skypiea feel relevant enough to the overall storyline. From the gold that they got from the Shandians, to Luffy taking on his most natural enemy, there's always just been this kind of weird, hollow feeling when you think about Skypiea. Like, there needs to be just something a little bit more to really make it feel integral to the story. And considering that Eneru Eneru wasn't even defeated, he was simply kind of allowed to leave, which is very peculiar when it comes to a lot of One Piece villains. Usually they kind of end up in prison to some degree, or they escape to plot another day. But with Eneru, it's very strange because his adventures on the moon feel like they were building towards something. He goes to the moon, he finds that at some point either the Shandians and the Brickens lived on the moon, or they traveled to the moon at one point. How is anyone's guess, but physics in One Piece are a little bit dicey. Getting to the moon just seems to be a leisurely plane ride away for the most part. And it is that thought that brings me to my overall theory. Eneru goes up to the moon. He ends up kind of getting stranded there with some space pirates. Yes, space pirates, like of all things. Blowing up his Maxim, making it so that he has no real way of getting back home. But that's all well and good because he's met by these automatons known as the Spaceys, who existed for some reason both on the moon and on the planet. So that continued connection with the moon just permeates through Eneru's side story. So it is my assumption that at some point later on in the series, that Eneru will return, that he won't return empty-handed, and he will end up playing a pivotal part in the finale of One Piece, because something that I've been considering for some time now is that the ancient weapons have connections to various different races, and each of those races are represented by a certain aspect of the One Piece world, namely land, sea, and air. With the sea, you have Poseidon, or Shirahoshi, who is able to command the Sea Kings. For the land, I think that will end up being some kind of association with Zou, and Momonosuke, and the Minks and all that, the people of the land. And I feel like the final ancient weapon will have some kind of association with the people of the air, the Skypians, or the Brickens, or those who live in the clouds, or even further beyond that, on the moon. It just seems so out of place that Oda would craft this entire civilization in the sky and just not have them play such an integral part to everything. Because even with King, for some reason King has wings, black wings on top of that, as well as him also having that weird fire on his back. So I feel that there has to be something to the races of people who live in the sky and have wings. There's something significant about King, there's something significant about Eneru and his trip to the moon, and I also think there's something significant about Uroj. Because let's be honest, each of the supernovas up until this point have had some form of relevance, some form of push for them in the series of the Yonko saga and all of that good stuff. With the only ones who we haven't really gotten too much out of, who haven't had some form of encounter with Luffy up in this point, being Jewelry Bonnie and Uroj. Jewelry Bonnie obviously has some kind of connection with Bartholomew Kuma, so I think Jewelry Bonnie will be saved for last once we start dealing with the Celestial Dragons, and some kind of history revolving around the fact that she might have a longer lifespan than what we think. Because we still don't know enough about Bartholomew Kuma, the kingdom he used to rule over, all that good stuff. But more than that, we also don't know enough about Uroj. Hell, we don't even know exactly from what Sky Island he hails from. However, one thing that we do know is that his wings, unlike a lot of the people who live on Skypiea before Eneru and all of his men came over, his priests and stuff, Uroj has the same wings as all of them, all the people of Bricka. So I feel like there might be some kind of connection there between Uroj and Eneru. Hell, Uroj might even be from a long-forgotten civilization on the moon, or one that had traveled to the moon at some point. Hell, Bricka itself also shares a name with the ancient civilization that Eneru had found on the moon. There is some weird connection going on here. Hell, it's even kind of made to seem as though the Brickans, the Shandians, and the Skypeans were at one point all one people to a certain degree, who lived on the moon. There's some kind of weird connection going on there, because for some reason, Uroj is being saved for last. We're just not getting enough information on Uroj. And I feel as though, even though the supernovas were created kind of last minute, to include a Brickan amongst the supernovas gives Oda the moment he needs to really flesh out Skypiea, or the Skypeans, the Shandians, the Brickans. How long ago did they come to the Blue Sea? And not just that, what made them stay on Sky Islands? What made some of them end up in Shandora? There's something kind of strange about the nature of these three races. Not to mention, though we know that Eneru came from Bricka, why does he have that ring with the drums on his back? Is it simply to appear as a god? Did he mutilate himself and remove his wings in order to differentiate himself? Or was there something deeper beyond that? It's so easy to write so much of this stuff off as some passing fancy of Oda's, but we know Oda far too well. Hell, in the most recent chapter before this recording, we came to find out something deeper about the Gum Gum fruit. Now, whether that actually ends up being relevant is hard to say. That Oda really does want to go deeper with some of these plot points. It could always be that he's giving us false promise, but that's not the Oda I know or you know. There's always some kind of angle with Oda, where even if he didn't think about it beforehand, he comes up with the ideas later down the line. Oda always leaves enough room, enough wiggle room to add a little bit more information here and there. That's the significance of the Gum Gum fruit. He left enough wiggle room to include something later down the line. He left enough wiggle room about Jinbei, whereas Jinbei was originally going to be an antagonist, full on, controlling Arlong from the shadows. Now he's one of Luffy's best allies. Oda plays the long game, and he does it well. He plays it smart. Because even when he's not thinking ahead, he gives himself enough of a chance to think ahead and try his best not to contradict himself. He doesn't always succeed, but he succeeds more often than not, and that's the aspect of Oda's writing that I'm always so impressed by. And with all the weird clues that we've gotten about the Shandians, the Brickens, the Skypians, there has to be something a little bit more there. And I feel like it'll coincide with the return of Eneru. And I feel it all came down to the fact that at some point Oda at most wanted to give something to Eneru to occupy him on the moon to keep him from just returning back and razing Skypiea to the ground again. There had to be something significant enough for Eneru to stay on the moon for 2 goddamn years. Hell, the automata in general seem to be something very reminiscent of what you would expect Dr. Vegapunk to make. I wouldn't be surprised if all of this was connected to the Void Century, and by that proxy, even the ancient weapons. There's just so much potential here, and it all ties back in to Eneru. Had he simply been defeated and locked away or knocked into the Blue Sea or something like this, it would have been all said and done. Skypiea would have barely any real relevance. But with Eneru and the journey that he's made, the discoveries that he's made, and the potential that Oda has instilled in that aspect of the storyline, I wholeheartedly believe that Eneru's return will coincide with the end of Luffy's adventure and the overall battle that we will see for the claiming of One Piece. How that will play out is anyone's guess. Hell, who knows if Eneru will even be able to stand up to Luffy with all of the improvements that he's made. But with an ancient weapon by his side, Eneru just might be able to conquer the entirety of the Blue Sea and be a force to be reckoned with. But what do you think? What do you think about my theories about the ancient weapons, Orochi's importance, and the role that Eneru will play in the final battle for One Piece? Do you have any theories of your own on what will happen once Eneru returns? Or do you agree at least a little bit with my theory? I'd love to hear from you. And on top of that, I would love for you to subscribe, hit the bell icon, like and comment for more One Piece theory videos. Or don't, I ain't your daddy, but I still love you like one. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.